Step into analysis, please.
Welcome back, everybody. Today we're talking about some of the most interesting questions going into the end of the season. These are in no particular order, and overall, I think they just offer some interesting glimpse at what's to come or what we can speculate about. So let's jump into it and overthink an HBO show about robots. Why are the events on the beach out of order, and how did Bernard finish Strand's sentence? This question comes from Chris Cole. So I think we can safely say the cats in the cradle theory isn't exactly right. Bernard may not be going through some super simulator and dissected in the ultimate VR chat experiment, though if the Valley Beyond is a human cradle, it leaves the possibility open. I still stand by the theory being pretty accurate because Bernard is being interrogated, and we do see the scene briefly flash through his memories, meaning that what we saw was not the present, and he is in fact being probed for information. So what does that mean? Well, the average user isn't going to work a full-time job, get off of work, dedicate every waking moment researching and dissecting this show. So we'll likely get another scene of Bernard recalling his memories, either through a forceful interrogation or his unindexed brain going through it naturally. And the show will make the visual connection to that very first scene very clear for the non-obsessive viewers, proving that it wasn't the first and only time that he's been through that interaction. The next question we come to is, how can William ride west and see Emily appear out of the rising sun? This question comes from the Flightless Dodo bird on Patreon, and at first I thought nothing of it. Thought that maybe it was just the next day, with editing tricks similar to Dolores running away from the man in black and falling into William's arms, like we've seen them do before. However, if you go back and watch the scene like I'm showing now, it's 100% the same day of William's morning departure, heading west. The sun highlights her back in this shot, and then more overhead, meaning it was the rising sun. For those that maybe haven't caught on to why this is weird or why I'm discussing this, it's because the sun doesn't rise in the west. It rises in the east. I'm honestly at a loss of what this could be, and I'm shocked that I haven't heard this brought up before, but it really got me thinking. What could this be? Why? How? Well, it could be deceptive editing. They've done it in the past and will likely do it again to the disdain of, well, everyone. But what if they're highlighting something more? Something that ties together the way Dolores stares at the moon in this scene, the way such extreme biomes could exist in such close proximity, the reason that they felt necessary to discuss climate control being back at the Mesa. What if they're legitimately in a dome? What if this is all the Truman Show extended universe and we are the audience being torn about deciding if Dolores should be set free or not?
Was nothing real?
If you can't tell, does it matter?
There's no more truth out there than there is in the world I created for you.
Jokes aside, this is very interesting, and though I've previously stated I think it's just a plain old very secure island off the coast of South China Sea, maybe it's really not. A dome with a huge diameter, some kind of virtually projected skybox, giant climate control systems that can simulate weather such as rainfall. I don't know how credible it is, but unless William just went east by accident and then off camera turned around and they shared a nice laugh about orienteering, I have no clue. Though a counter argument is that if this is a dome, how could the programmers possibly mess up the direction that the sun rises? At some point we have to believe Delos is competent to do some things. Hiring staff is definitely not a strong suit, but they have to know which direction the sun rises, right? Right? I mean, I guess we could also just say it's continuity error and that the show creators didn't know which way the sun rises, but I don't know. I don't feel that. Overall, my gut feeling is that this isn't a dome. And maybe I'm just praying it isn't manipulative editing or William riding in the wrong direction for no reason. I think this is just an interesting thing to watch out for. And I think that when everything is said and done, this will be one of the moments we look back on and go, oh, it was in front of our face this entire time. But the next question we come to is a popular one. Is Charlotte Hale Charlie, Arnold's long-lost son? No. So this question has existed since season 1, and because of many, many, many reasons, people hold on tight to this. And I'm not really going to break down a huge list of pros and cons on this one. It comes to storytelling, in my opinion. What do we gain as an audience by Charlotte being Arnold's kiddo? Sure, it adds a much-needed depth to her character that if she isn't working for a third party, she will seriously be lacking. But I just don't see it being this. You can present a million semi-deductive connections between the two, like the fact that he was randomly holding a physical image of Charlie after dreaming of that sequence and then being tortured by Hale. But it comes down to why? What is this advance? What does this add? Is Hale suddenly going to be conflicted about the way she sees hosts? No. She will not see Bernard as her father, and if she was the male child Charlie, he would remember Arnold. This child is plenty old enough to remember his own life, though from what we know, he dies. Maybe people just like anagrams since the big reveal of Bernard Lowe rearranged spelling Arnold Weber, although it does bring up something interesting about this scene. From what we know of memories and everything that Bernard is being built by the memories of Ford and other early hosts, this means that Ford was either in the room with Arnold, which I think is possible, or this is Ford's heartbreaking rendition of what it was as it was described to him when he was comforting his best friend Arnold. Moving on. Is the door the journey to teach hosts compassion or empathy? I actually really like this idea. This isn't to say a physical door to a new world doesn't exist, but what if Ford understood that Dolores would be a rampant murderer in the park, and then out of the park when they escape, and that this behavior would ultimately lead to the species' demise, because short of printing an army of hosts and taking over the world by sheer attrition, the human race would band together and stomp out this threat. So he understood that Dolores needed to know compassion and empathy, or heart, and he devised a plan in which two bands of people, Dolores and the Ghost Nation, would head to a common spot and Dolores could learn what he developed naturally, the will to help not only himself, but all hosts. No doubt fighting will incur between these two, but I propose a lesson will come from this. Otherwise, why would Ford develop Dolores and the current Wyatt mentality? Would it not serve everyone's goals so much better to have them work together to escape? Why reinforce that she is the Deathbringer? If Ford wanted awakened hosts like Bernard freedom from this place, surely it wouldn't do any good to have two giant factions combat each other right before leaving. Unless it serves to teach a lesson to Dolores, and Ford was really committed to this entire free will narrative, which that argument immediately bites itself in the butt because why would he express Dolores having such free will, so righteously reigning with warring ways, while Bernard gets stopped by two Delos engineers and he immediately loses his right to free will? It's a weird puzzle, and I think it relies heavily on what needs to be done to get a positive end result. Maybe Dolores was needed because she would rain hell on all that oppose her, and maybe Akecheta is needed because he acts as the moral good that hosts can achieve. But I end with the door is probably a physical place, but the journey too could also represent hosts learning to understand compassion for each other and humans as well. Not all humans deserve to die in this escapade. Very interesting concept, and it ties in the thing that's been stuck in my head ever since the last episode of why would Ford develop two opposing parties in his final narrative if he simply wanted awakened hosts to leave the park? The next question we come to is how can Akecheta find his love in cold storage in such a place as the Mesa? The answer is Ford. I mean, I know that we don't want to attribute Ford to his progress learning everything that we did since last episode, but I firmly believe that Ghost Nation were just an instrument that Ford used in this master plan, and executed his commands off-scene to accomplish everything that we've seen now. I mean, I think I've used this edit before, but it all comes down to this interaction here. Ford tells Stubbs that he can automate most of the park's security features, and then the next time we see Stubbs, he's captured and protected while Dolores terminates all humans. It doesn't get any closer to automated security than that. For this host to randomly just walk around for an unknown amount of time, never caught, and seemingly makes a beeline for this cold storage floor, which automatically opens while all other times has to be pulled by this lever, it has to be Ford. Lastly, what is the Valley Beyond? My thoughts have pretty much been put into every video since the video titled What is the Valley Beyond, and it hasn't changed too much. It's immortality. It's Delos trying to fit human minds into host bodies, and I believe that we're likely to see both sides of that coin. Perhaps a cradle filled with human minds trying to get to the point where they can be placed in a physical pearl, and then thousands of incubation pods trying to pass fidelity tests. It would make for amazing cinema, and heartbreaking and devastating destruction of this would be amazing. Or perhaps it's not. And that's the fun of the show, and I can't wait to find out in the next 2 weeks. With that, we reached the end of the video, and if I did not cover your question, put it below, and we'll start a mega thread of every question we could possibly think to ask and answer.
The hosts are all headed for the same place. The Valley Beyond. What will they find there?
Isn't the pleasure of a story in discovering the ending yourself, Bernard?
Big shout out to this month's highest donators on Patreon: John Levin, Robert Holtz, Chris Cole, Sammy Barras, Vanessa, Cano, Greg Purnell, and Michael Linck. The Non-Hateful Eight, which I've personally reached out to Quentin Tarantino, and he's agreed to let you all star in his next film. Thank you to everyone who empowers me to make content like this. And if you do want more Westworld content, even during the off-season, please do consider subscribing today. Much love, everybody, and I hope to see you again soon.